Hello, Shelby. How are you doing?
Hey, Stephen. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah. We were just chatting whether we were trying to figure out if we've had a second time guest that wasn't through like a group episode. And I don't know if we figured it out, but this may be the first time that we've had a repeat guest that is just here to just chat on a one two-on-one topic. And so we're excited to have you back.
Thanks.
As you know, every episode we start with good news story. We just share a personal or work related story. And so, Shelby, do you want to kick us off with a little good news?
Well, I guess first good news, the reason we're all here is I'm celebrating the 3-year anniversary of being a solopreneur and my little consulting business surviving. So happy to be celebrating that. And I think that, I guess, not related to me, good news is that I just continue to get so much joy supporting people leaders from behind the scenes. And we'll get into it today, but there are just all these little magical moments that happen in this work, advising people leaders. And it just, it keeps me motivated to do what I do.
Daniel, you want to go next? You want me to take it?
Ah,
I'll take it.
I can. Oh,
I'll
you
take
take
it.
it. You take it.
Yeah. So my good news is I am actively pursuing my next move, whether I'm employed at a big company or I'm still an entrepreneur, that the details are still working themselves out. And I've started having lots of meetings. So I'm like 12 meetings in and having some very specific conversations about potential future jobs. But my good news is there's something amazing in just meeting with people and hearing about the exciting, cool things that all the great minds in the people space are up to. And so I've, started, I probably have taken a very different approach to finding my next job, seeing as it's been 9 years since I last looked for a job. But I've centered around my network, and man, I'm just blessed that I have a network like I do, and just kudos to everyone out there, just innovating and taking risks and coming up with cool things to do in our space. Because as we know, the people space, we need innovation. We need to keep moving this thing forward. So that's my good news.
I'm gonna stick with the theme of being a solopreneur, and I guess I can't quite call myself that. I guess we would be duopreneurs. I don't know what you would call it, but there's something about running like a one or two man business where you get to do so many different things that are fun, at least for me. So I'm a marketer by trade. So getting to run social media, getting to edit the podcast, getting to record the podcast, getting to do sales, doing like some graphic design work. Like there's so many different tasks. There's a good variety of tasks that I have throughout the week. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do it and that it's something that is meaningful, like what we're talking about and the conversations we're having and the work that we're doing. So, yeah, I'm, just I guess a little bit reflective on this Friday, and I'm just very appreciative that the modern people leader is even a thing and that we're having this conversation right now.
That is pretty awesome, especially for me, because Shelby, our relationship goes back to my other venture, and we first met as you're obviously part of People Tech Partners, and you're an advisor, and you looking at what you were doing and what your professional life looked like back then and comparing that to now is very, very different and just so cool and so exciting. So to hear that you're hitting your 3-year anniversary is just awesome. And since you've been on the show before, we thought we could follow the same format just with some small tweaks. You're celebrating your 3-year anniversary. So we thought it would just be cool to use that lens. So we're going to actually follow the normal standard modern people leader discussion like outline into our show format, just with some minor tweaks. Sound good?
Sounds wonderful.
Awesome. Well, first, it's what I call the Brene Brown question, like, what's your story? What's your journey? And so tell us more about how you became a solopreneur. Walk us through the journey from like the inception to where you are today with your three-year anniversary.
Goodness. Yes. Thank you. Hopefully I'll share a short version of the story. But prior to starting my consulting business, I was a people leader for 15 years. So both in kind of non-startups, but then for the majority of my career was a people leader at 4 high growth unicorn tech companies. And so my specialty was in helping startups scale their people operations from around 100 employees to 1,000 employees. And I went and did that 4 times. And that's can be brutal and you learn a ton, but I was ready for a break. And I also had this specialty of supporting globally distributed teams. Years before the pandemic, most of my startups were global companies. And my last one, a company called Envision, was one of the pioneers of remote work, where everyone was working remotely before the pandemic. The pandemic happened. I was ready to move on from Envision and started talking around my network and saying, hey, I'm thinking about consulting as my next chapter. If I was to start consulting on high growth people operations and fully remote teams, would this be interesting to you? Talking to CEOs that I knew, talking to venture capital firms, and everyone, and mind you, this was like in the heart of the pandemic when everyone was grappling with the transition to remote work. They were foaming at the mouth with it, like a need for someone to come in and help lots and lots of companies navigate this. So I saw both an opportunity for me to design kind of the life that I wanted with the flexibility as a solopreneur, but also the ability to just really expand my reach and help so many more companies than just one company at a time. So that was kind of the vision to start it out. And the first year and a half to 2 years were very intense, with tons of business coming my way, with more opportunities than I had time to take them on. Thousands and thousands of companies were going fully remote and needed help. Then the recession started to happen, and consultants were all starting to get nervous. Like, what does this mean for us and our consulting budgets getting slashed? What does this mean? And so it's been an interesting time to navigate. I think I'm starting to see us come out of the recession, and business is starting to like flourish again, and lots of opportunities are coming my way. But it's just one of the realities of a solo practitioner, that it's your business and yours alone, and you're going to have to deal with lots of different factors that come your way. One of the kind of sticking with kind of the journey and the way that my business has evolved is that I also wanted to very intentionally stay small. I had a lot of people telling me, you should grow this empire and you should bring on all these subcontractors and really make this huge consulting business. And that was completely opposite of what I had intended to do and why I wanted to go solo in the first place. And so I've thought more creatively on how I could grow my business, but still be a one woman show. And so over the last 3 years, I've experimented with different revenue streams to my business, such as the playbooks that I sell on my website. So I now have productized and packaged some of my learnings to startups that want to self-serve with those playbooks. I offer Ask Me Anything sessions where any startup can spend time with me, but not on kind of a retainer or contractual basis. And then most recently, I've been experimenting with a mentorship program where it's like a lighter touch way of coaching people leaders that are usually paying out of their own pocket to get coaching because they just care a lot about their career and want to grow it. So I wear a lot of hats, but I really love it, if that's not clear. And but I still kind of, to Daniel's point, like I don't take any of it for granted. And each quarter that goes by and the business is still flourishing, I celebrate it and, don't take it. I'm just very grateful and don't take it for granted.
One of our at Workify, one of our early investors and board members, he would always say he was old school, and he wasn't a SaaS startup guy, which was problematic. and but I learned a lot. I learned a lot from this individual. And one of the things he would always say is, every day that you have to be a CEO, you should be grateful for, whether you're one person or 100 people, because like most people don't get this chance. They don't get this opportunity. Anyone could, but most people don't. And like, I remember being in the board meetings being like, we've got so much to cover. Why am I getting a lecture on this right now? And looking back, like, I totally get it. Now, looking back, it's like every day is, I'm grateful for every day that we can build and create. And what I love about your creation story, Shelby, is like you did it your way. And I feel like in the circles that we operate in, there are playbooks for success, right? And or formulas for success. Like if you do this and you scale it and you get contractors, you could dominate. You could be the HR consulting firm, but that wasn't what you were looking for. And rather than being like, oh, well, everyone keeps telling me like this isn't the move, like I love that you took the risk and you were able to do it your way. And so how do you describe this solopreneur experience to those that are considering? Because I think one of the things that you do now is you also do a lot of mentoring to people that are exploring. One of your playbooks is like, how can you do this for yourself? So how do you describe that process, that journey?
Oh, yes. Well, I would describe it as is that there are a lot of emotional ups and downs. Like there are really high highs and there are very low lows. And like, and it's just you now. You don't have a team where you can go jump in a conference room and brainstorm together. It's really on you. And you can outsource a lot of things, but at the end of the day, like you are running sales, you are running marketing, like Daniel said. I do all my own bookkeeping and invoicing. I do like I have a designer that helps me, but I end up templatizing that and then like doing a lot of my own design work too. And so you wear a ton of hats. And with with the recession and with kind of like other aspects of running a business, there's just a lot of like highs and lows, like I said. And so a lot of the advice that I give to other consultants is that you need kind of mental models and mantras that you say to yourself when the times are tough. I have a lot of mantras that I like literally have on Post-its around my computer that I look at daily. I've done, work with therapists and coaches myself to figure out the right mental model for me. And an example of that is that when the business was like at its peak, I was like grinding and grinding and growing the business to no end. And I found that I was stressed and like ego was coming into play. And I was like working harder than I was as an operator and just going against kind of the reasons I started this in the beginning. And so something that's been really useful for me in building out a business plan for my company is, of course, having minimums of like, what is the minimum I want to earn to make this a sustainable business for myself and my life? But also, what are the maximums? Like, what are the max number of clients I want to take on at any given time? What is the max number of income I want to earn so that I can just stop and take a break? And if my last client meeting ends at 2:00 on a Tuesday, then I know I should just get up and walk away from my desk, go for a walk, meet a friend for coffee, like do anything else but work, and to know that that's okay.
I relate with that so much. And it's funny, you say you do your own bookkeeping and invoicing. The other day, me and Steven were trying to figure out, is this something we should do ourselves or we should hire somebody to do? I guess like when it comes to just finding inspiration as a solopreneur, are there any solopreneurs out there that you sort of had your eye on and maybe you didn't completely replicate what they were doing, but stole like a thing or two, like, oh, like that's interesting. Maybe they're like in a different industry, but you saw how that could be applied to HR. I'm just curious, like, are there any people that you were personally following before you went down this journey yourself?
Yeah. There were quite a few consultants that were my champions and like helped me on my journey, that I modeled my offerings and my like how I packaged up my services similar to them. For example, there are lots of fractional or interim consultants out there that there's so many benefits, and I'm a huge fan of that work. But you are often working 20 hours a week for a client or 40 hours a week for a client, but just on an interim basis. And that, like, I just knew in my gut that that's not the kind of work that I wanted to do, which is why I'm very strictly in the advising camp of working in a less hours, but in a much more strategic way with my clients. Another person not in the industry that was a huge role model for me getting started was Justin Welsh. He's a very popular guy on LinkedIn, helping solopreneurs build businesses, and specifically taught me how to sell digital products on LinkedIn. So how to think about growing your followers and building a brand and being very specific about what you offer. So he was a big help in my start, but I continue to learn so much from him, and he kind of is an inspiration to me daily on the life I'm trying to design as a solopreneur.
And so this next question, I think, is more so for our audience, because I think Daniel and I get it. But why should anyone be jealous that you get to be a solopreneur, that you get to do what you do?
Oh, well, I don't love the question because I don't want people to be jealous. I really try to inspire people and to say, like, I was just this average HR person. Like I'm there's not, yes, I think I'm special, but like if I can do it, you can do it too. And I find that I'm stealing another thing from Justin, but so many people have ideas, like ideas for businesses, ideas for digital products, the desire to be a consultant, but very few people act on it because there's so much fear involved. So I guess, why people should be jealous is that, like, I had the guts to do it, but I really want to encourage like so many more people to take that jump and try and give it their all, for 6 to 12 months, give it a real go.
I've always said, like, I don't care if it's the guy pushing the popsicle cart or a founding team that's working on some amazing AI solution. Like, regardless of what the business is, that I have a tremendous amount of respect for those people, even though I don't know the details, just because I know what it takes to take that jump and then to wake up every day and say, you know what, I'm still doing this. This is what life is for me. And so ditto to that. It's tough. And so the more people that can get inspired to do it, like, I think the people space in particular needs it. So
yeah, I think the pandemic caused so many people around the world to question their job and their employer and their boss, and was it all worth it? And this is the one life I have to live. And that's really the approach I'm taking. I'm super into this book called Die with Zero, which is a pretty out there concept, or it just goes against a lot of what we were taught kind of early in our careers, that you need to just like work and work and work and save up for your retirement, and then go have your bucket list and do all the things you want to do when you're in retirement age. And I think people kind of the newer generations are realizing that that's probably not the right answer, that you're often too old by that point to do the things that you want to do. Maybe you have health issues or just lack of energy, or your partner can't travel with you, like whatever the situation is. And so there's some great exercises in that book to help you think about what are all the life experiences that you want to have, and when is the ideal time to have them, and starting to kind of rearrange your finances and rearrange your life plan accordingly.
I made a note of the book. I'm going to order it right now.
I'm literally buying it on Amazon right now. Oh, this sounds amazing.
I love it.
That's hilarious. So we recently started doing a new segment that we call the State of the Union for Talent, where we ask your thoughts on the talent market. And it seems as though companies are still being tentative and people leaders have a neutral to negative outlook. So since you have the privilege to work with a lot of people leaders in fast growing remote companies, like what's your view on the State of the Union for talent?
Great question. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think we're in a bit of a limbo time where some industries are flourishing. There's some pockets of tech that are still getting investment and growing, such as health tech, climate tech, fintech. These are a lot of the clients that I'm signing and that are coming to me saying, we got to grow. We're on the move. And then there's, the rest, the large majority of companies that are still struggling, making their way through, potentially having like another round of layoffs, unfortunately, and on hold or being very, very conservative. So I think it's like a mixed bag depending on the types of companies you're talking to.
Are there any, I guess, themes from the conversations that you're having, the people that you're consulting? Like what are like the one or two things that you're getting questions on, or they're struggling with, or they're just trying to figure out?
Yeah, I think that, in the pre-recession days, I work in venture-backed tech. So money was just falling from the sky, like super large rounds. I'd be working with a client and they'd raise their A, their B, and their C all within 2 years of working with them. And it was all about speed. It wasn't about making fiscally responsible decisions. It was about like, we got to just get everything built out from a people perspective, everything at once. And now I'm seeing just much more diligence, much more intentional decision-making around systems, adding headcount to the team. More people are involved in the decision. So where the people leader maybe had full autonomy before to set their budget and set their tech stack, now other leaders are involved and slowing them down.
I feel like you have this, you bring an interesting perspective, because not only do you consult people leaders and not only are you a solopreneur, but you also do advising work for some startups in the HR tech space. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like, how much is this affecting those HR tech companies? Like, are they struggling right now? Are there some segments within HR tech that are doing better than others? Like, what's sort of the state of the union on HR tech? It's tough to really tell until you see, like, for example, this past week, my former employer, Humu, was acquired by Perceptix. And because I worked there, I mean, I kind of saw it coming, but a lot of times with these companies, I don't really see it coming until like the news breaks. So I feel like you have this interesting view where you kind of know what's going on behind the scenes, but just curious, like, your thoughts on the HR tech world right now.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a ton of consolidation and a ton of moving away from point solutions to a solution needing to be able to cover a lot more ground. So, where I can use a few examples, but if a company was just doing one type of training, for example, that's just no more. It needs to either cover like all your training or do training and coaching, just as one small example. We're seeing companies like Lattice and Culture Amp and ChartHop really expand the breadth of their offerings so that HR teams who are being forced to cut their budgets or make just the optics of adding yet another HR tool no longer will suffice. And so HR leaders are having to be much more strategic with their tool stack to cover more ground, but just we're going to have 3 tools and those tools are going to cover our full needs versus pre-pandemic, pre-recession. A Series B tech company could have a tech stack of 12 to 15 tools.
Where does that leave new entrants into the HR tech space? Like, do you think that leaves a lot of potential founders discouraged? Or do you think we'll still see a flurry of new companies every year with this move to consolidation versus having a bunch of different point solutions?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I work with lots of different types of companies, and there's so many companies out there that have different needs. Where I see the new entrants coming is in smaller startups, earlier stage startups that can play and pilot and experiment and get great pricing because they're willing to be a beta customer and all that comes along with that, with bugs and kind of building the product as they're using it, being highly influential in the vision of the product and the roadmap. So I see a lot of the tech companies that I advise, like the HR tech companies, loving to play in that space while they're getting product market fit. And then once they have product market fit, you're seeing them really go up market and start to sell to enterprise. And that's when they have to expand the scope of their offerings.
Yeah. And along the same lines, I'm just curious, obviously, generative AI just has been a complete disruptor to the people conversations, right? Whether it's literally the impact on people or the benefits that that generative AI can bring to the HR tech stack. And so I'm curious, who do you think the winners will be? Will it be one of the big guys or one of the smaller players, almost like a new entrant on the AI front? Because there's like it becomes really hard because the bigger players have bigger budgets, right? And so they can market things in a way that smaller companies can't. And so, like, if I'm a buyer, like, how do I'm going to need to sift through to figure out like which is going to be the AI solution that really drives the value that the ROI that I need, particularly with all the tight budgets. And so I'm curious, any predictions on what the winners might look like? Not necessarily who, but just like, what type of business what size of business?
Yeah. Well, I have lots of thoughts on AI. I think it's so new when it comes to consumers interacting with it. I've made it a point because I myself have, I would say in the last 6 months, like really dug in and have started to use AI tools in my daily practice. And I literally now like am hooked and it's a part of my daily workflow. But I have made it a point to, anytime I'm at an HR networking event or at a dinner, especially with groups of women, because there's studies that have shown that like women are adopting AI at a slower rate than men. I talk about AI and I like have people bring up their phones and run a prompt using ChatGPT, using Bard, tools they've never even heard of, or they've heard of it, but it's like this gray space. They don't really get what it is. They've never pulled up the website and can blow their minds at a dinner party with its capabilities. So one point I'm making here is that I think it's still very early days where a lot of people, especially HR people, are very new in their education around what it is and how it could be beneficial to their work. But I am very bullish on so many ways that it can improve the workflows for people operations teams, for recruiting operations. I luckily get to work with a lot of these companies doing this work. I'll share two examples. One is a company called Guru, that is one of the companies around kind of centralized documentation and discoverability of company information, helping distributed teams discover answers, create knowledge, verify that knowledge. And then they now have some AI tools within their product that are helping HR teams draft policies, draft documentation, and not just HR teams, across all departments within the business, just to speed up that process. And the verifying the information is an important one to me. I'm a huge believer in documentation for distributed teams. And so just having confidence that the data is up to date, it's accurate, just so we're not slowing down the pace of the business when people are looking for answers. Another area I'm super bullish on is using AI in the recruiting space for better note-taking, better, fair, equitable hiring practices. I think but I work with a company called Bright Hire, and before I saw the demo of Bright Hire for the first time a few years ago, I was embarrassed to say how I did interview notes and like what my recruiting process was. And I find myself to be a particularly like organized, forward-thinking person. And so I just can't imagine across the planet how much time is wasted on inefficient recruiting and how much value could be gained for some of these recruiting tools I'm particularly excited about.
Have y'all seen the new feature with ChatGPT? Like
Which
within
one?
the last like few days. So I logged in yesterday, and now it's trying to like get more context for who the person is that's using GPT. So it asks you 4 questions. And I think one of the questions is like, who are you? How should I address you? What do you do for work? What do you like to do in your free time? Should I respond in a more formal way? Should it be more casual? There's just like a set of like 4 or 5 contextual questions. And once you save it, you can apply that to all of your prompts going forward. So I was curious if y'all had seen that. And it just got me thinking, I feel like there's going to be so many more updates on the generative AI front, especially with tools like GPT and Bard and all of the other tools that use that technology as like the backbone of what they do.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of scary, some of the things, some of the elements that you're mentioning, because I have found, like, for example, if I'm using ChatGPT and I'm doing Modern People Leader work, I start by saying I am the co-host of the Modern People Leader podcast. And like, just because I know I've learned it gives me better results, and it will draft things, especially if it's in my voice or a blog that I'm writing. It is much more effective if I start it that way. So it's not surprising that they would build in those prompts. And the point on women adopting AI, like that is a something that I love that you are talking to everyone and all the peers in your network, Shelby, because what's scary to me is, like, if you're standing in line, ordering a taco, the 100% of those people in the line have heard of AI. It still feels like it's a much smaller percentage that are actually using it and that actually know, in like practical day-to-day use case terms, how powerful it is. Because if you've used it, it is mind-blowing at just like the speed at which it does what generative AI can do. And then to think that of those, the people that act, that small percentage of the people that out there in the world that know what is actually happening, it's even a smaller percentage that are women. Like, that is terrifying to me personally, especially as the father of daughter. Just like for the world, that seems like a big problem. But probably one for another podcast conversation with you, Shelby, because we want to, similar to the state of the union on talent, we want to have like a spin-off conversation with you specific to remote working. It seems like the pendulum is swinging hard. We swung super far to, like, obviously everyone working remotely. Then as the post-pandemic settled, it was like, we started to see some wavering, and now it feels like the pendulum swung way back. And I think the most current example is the pandemic boom darling. Zoom announced that they're going back to in-office work or hybrid work. And I know that there's people that are like misstating what is actually happening at Zoom. But I think the reason we've latched onto Zoom is because of the irony of it all. Like, literally, Zoom is the tool that we use to enable large components of remote working. So I think to see that they're kind of wavering, going the other direction, just feels ironic. And so I just want to have a conversation about this. So why do you think so many of the pundits, of the thought leaders, are considering it feels like they're considering remote work a failure? And there is a growing segment of people out there that are actually saying that the metrics are in favor of in-office work. I don't know if that data is
We
rooted in. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was gonna say we had an off the record chat the other day with the chief people officer of a high growth startup, and it's a
Very well
board,
known
yeah, board, it's a
global
board
people leader.
mandate for them to either go back into the office or have a, I think they were trying to make a mandate that people needed to be within like 50 miles of the office or something like that.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, they've hired almost 100% of their workforce remote. So this would be a big shift. And their board is saying that all of their other portfolio companies have already made this shift. And in their opinion, they're more profitable. That's like the argument that's being made or that we're hearing. And I don't know if that's true or it's not true, but yeah, just curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Well, so first, I think it's important to like anchor ourselves in the facts, because the news likes to sensationalize little snippets and kind of get the facts wrong. So I looked up before our chat today that, technically what's going on with Zoom is they are taking a hybrid approach. You're right. And asking employees within a 50 miles, that only those that live within a 50-mile radius of the office to come in 2 days per week. But of all of the 7,400 team members at Zoom, that return to office plan only impacts 34% of their workforce. So it's important to, anchor ourselves in the fact that this is, a third of their workforce that's going to be coming in 2 days a week. But it's still meaningful, and I think it's still worth talking about. But I have a bit of a hot take on kind of this salacious news of Zoom returning to the office. In reading the reasons why they're doing it, they're really trying to serve the needs of their customers. The reality is that most of the world is hybrid. I am a fan of fully remote work, but it's not for everybody. And I think the majority of companies should not be fully remote. It takes a ton of intentional design, and it's really not for every company. And so, if Zoom is trying to maintain a sustainable business and serve the needs of their hybrid customers, like they need to dog food their own product, kind of live and breathe their product, and have a portion of their staff working in a hybrid way. At all the tech companies that I worked for, we really tried to live and breathe the experience of our customers so that we were building the best product.
And so I think what I'm hearing is you're not a believer that remote work is the end all be all working model. But from my perspective, there certainly are like extremely compelling reasons why you would want to consider remote working, just from a cost, from an OpEx perspective, and from a talent standpoint. And so, but again, increasingly it feels like there is a view. In my recollection of the conversation that Daniel mentioned, was like the board had data, like it was positioned as like a fact. In-office companies are more profitable than remote companies. So all of our portfolio businesses are going to have to go back to in-office. And how do you react to and I get it, and we're working off of like third party information, but if you were a people leader, like what would you, that worked for one of these businesses, like what would your what's your reaction to that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a key difference of like when it began. I tend to work with a lot of companies that were born out of the pandemic. So all they have ever known is working in a globally distributed way and a fully remote way. And they built their systems and their processes and the way they do goal setting and the way they do feedback all through a remote lens. And so it's still hard, but they're finding it much easier than the majority of companies, that the existing companies, especially large public companies that were, not operating that way pre-pandemic. So I fully recognize the challenge of the big organizational shift that so many larger established companies are having to go through to make it work. And I could see a world in which profitability could suffer because of that, because it's just a very different way of working. I just still think it's too soon to tell. I know this one VC had their data for their portfolio, but we haven't seen enough like real research to make a definitive call. I think you're right, Stephen. There are so many benefits to people's individual lives and to the balance sheet of a company that I'm not ready to call it yet. But my mission is to help people, the companies that really want to try to be fully remote or work in a remote first way. Let's do everything we can to set us up for success before we call it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it comes down to like the intention. And I keep coming back to this analogy that Sile from MetaView, who we had on the show, gave us about how when steam powered factories made the transition to having electricity, and how there was this new technology that instantly you were able to see the gains from, but it took years to sort of figure out how to reconfigure the factory floor to get the most from that new technology. And that's sort of how I view remote work. It's this new technology that we have. We all acknowledge that there are a lot of benefits that come from it, but I think most companies, and it's hard for me to say that because I live in this bubble of high growth startups, so it's hard to acknowledge this, but most companies haven't figured out how to make the most of this new technology. And it's going to, as you said, it's going to take some time to see whether or not it's, better or worse.
Yeah, the example I give is e-commerce. Like there was a time that 0 companies were selling their products online. And so it could have been easy to look at, well, bricks and mortar, like that's definitely the way to go. Like we have all this data to support bricks and mortars is the way to, like, what are you talking about, this internet thing? And now looking back, like we all know that was wrong and that Amazon, Bezos was absolutely right. But it took a decade for all of that to shake out. And so it'll be fun to see where the next few years take us.
Yeah. And I guess for me, at the end of the day, I don't kind of rotate too hard one way or the other when these salacious headlines come out. And again, I even like respect what Zoom is doing. I don't think it was a blow on remote work. I think that they're just making a smart business decision for what makes sense for their individual business. And every company is different and it has their own set of requirements.
So I want to come back to this being, 3 years as a solopreneur. So first off, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. I feel like, most people probably don't make it further than like a year or two on this journey because it's hard. It's hard to like, actually build a business that can support your life and replace your income that you were making in your W-2. So how does it feel like, 3 years in, and when exactly is it going to be 3 years?
August is my work birthday.
Okay. Do you know like what day though?
I don't.
So it could be today. Today could be the birthday.
It could be the birthday today. And but yeah, how does it feel? Like I said, like I pinch myself, like I don't take it for granted any quarter that I sign a new client. I'm like, okay, like the business is going to live on for 3 more months. This is great. And it really is like one of the misconceptions of a consultant is like what I heard, what I thought about consultants before doing this was the moment you step out of an operator role, you stop learning. And so it's like, well, I better just take everything I have and soak that up because that's it. And then I'm just going to kind of ride the coattails of those experiences for the foreseeable future. And I have found that to be like the farthest thing from the truth, because now I'm in like 10 businesses at once and I'm seeing so many different styles, different approaches, different questions, different problems, and my clients are stuck and then they're looking to me to get them unstuck. So I feel like I'm learning more than I was as an operator. I'm pushing myself to learn all these new skills like marketing and sales and getting comfortable with business development and closing contracts. And so I'm learning a lot of new things. So it just feels really good. And it's also fun for my daughter to say, my mom's a boss and my mom's a CEO.
That's awesome.
And we have this tradition of going and getting cupcakes to celebrate my business anniversary.
Ooh, that I like that. And I'm just throwing this out. I'm just throwing this out there. If you ever need anybody to brainstorm with and talk marketing or sales or any of the things related to being a solopreneur, we're always happy to have a jam session. So feel
Thank
free to
you.
reach out.
Yeah. Well, so, this year, actually, year 3, the word of the year for me was community. I realized that consulting can be a very lonely place and you're in your head a lot. And so this year I've really invested in rolling out the Consulting Getting Started guide. That has brought just a lot of, other fellow consultants my way who want to collaborate and learn and share referrals and share the hardships. And I'm part of a couple different communities of HR consultants where we can be vulnerable together and share pricing and share strategies and just like really be open about like all the nitty-gritty details, because like who else are you going to talk to about pricing if you aren't honest with your consulting friends?
Yeah, there aren't, and for us, there aren't many HR podcasts out there or like HR media companies, maybe a
So
handful.
true.
And yeah, it's it's not always easy or comfortable reaching out to those others and saying like, hey, like we should we should be meeting up like once a month, like there's room for all of us to succeed. Like I believe that, but it's still hard to, just reach out because you have as Steven likes to call it, the head trash. Like, oh, like why would they want to brainstorm? Like why would they want to help out? Like they're gonna see us as like a threat. So we should definitely start doing that, Steven.
Yeah,
I'm in. I'm in.
I had to learn, and I've talked about this a lot publicly, that consulting is not a zero-sum game. Like if you live in this scarcity mindset with consulting, it's going to be a real sad, scary place. And I try to live in the opposite way. I try to live in an abundance mindset where I just am confident in what I'm doing and that the business will come. And by sharing referrals, sharing opportunities, sharing lessons learned only helps the profession and helps me in return. It's kind of just like giving always comes back and helps me as well.
And I guess speaking of lessons learned, what have been some of the biggest lessons learned, like both as a consultant or solopreneur, but also like biggest lessons learned from working with, a number of different clients who I imagine are in slightly different worlds?
Yeah. For me, it's been such fulfilling work because, I was a people leader. Like I've done the job. I have the scars to prove it. I've done things wrong 10 times to now know the right way to do it. And so it's been so fulfilling to then help this next generation of people leaders not make all those same mistakes, or just to tell them, like, you're doing a great job. Like sometimes the HR person isn't hearing that. And, I've been told many times, I meet with my clients once a week, that like that hour a week with me is like the meeting they look forward to because everything else is a grind. And it's just this safe space where they can be vulnerable. They can ask the stupid questions. There's often a lot of crying and, a bit of, I'm not a therapist, but like a bit of therapy and coaching. But then we work through that emotion and we start working on a plan. And by the end of the hour, like they feel more settled and confident in a way forward. So there's just like no greater joy.
I love that. And another thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, just as we reflect on the last 3 years. So I have a theory that every entrepreneur, to be successful, you have to have one or two like expert skills. Like I'm an engineer, machine learning. I'm an expert in machine learning engineering. And, I also am a great salesman, or, you know, there has to be like a couple of things you're innately like just great at. And those are known knowns. Like these are things that you've done for a period of time. There's, you know, some personal acknowledgement that like, I'm really good at these things, and probably some external validation of that. But I also think to be successful over the long run as an entrepreneur, there have to be one or two expert skills that are like accidental or like a surprise, and those are like the unknown skills. And I'm just curious, like, has that been the experience for you? You know, were there some things that you knew like, I'm just gonna crush these things, and other things you're like, oh wow, like I'm actually a great designer also?
Yeah, yeah. So the core skills, the thing that I felt that was uniquely me, you know, that more and more people leaders are now running globally distributed teams, and through hyper growth. But when the pandemic happened, I was like one of five. I felt like that had done that work. And so that's my niche. I want to work with high growth, venture backed, Series A, B, and C companies, building best in class people operations and best in class distributed cultures. And I've learned how to kind of pattern match and move companies much more quickly through that process. Of course, customizing it to their unique company and their unique needs. But often people leaders come to me and they say, I just don't even know what I don't know. Like, show me what's on the other side of this hill, and what should I be budgeting for? What should I be advocating for headcount? And we just build that roadmap together. So one of the things that are kind of my expert skills and why my clients really appreciate me is that I'm strategy. We set that strategy, but then because I'm an operator and have been for so many years, then we go right into execution. And with all of the work product that I've gathered over the years, and as I've built this business, is endless project plans, sample presentations, communication plans, referrals out to, like, I know the best people, whatever the problem is, like I likely know the person to solve it quickly. So that's been really fun. And then I would say the kind of the unknown thing that happened was that I didn't realize I'd be moving more into coaching kind of the whole person. So, you know, the most surprising thing for me was just how much like humanity is not in business all the time. And so the work that I do with my clients is, you know, I mentioned the crying earlier, but it's really just, we talk about their whole self and their life outside of work, and if they have kids or they have a partner or whatever, if they're moving, if they have a sick parent, and because all of these things is going to be impacting their passion and their drive and their energy. And we work that all in. So, you know, they feel very supported. Also, you know, I'm working with companies in these very critical times where, you know, between a Series A and a Series B, that's often when companies are bringing in more senior level executives. They're bringing in that chief people officer, or they're bringing in that VP of people. And so often I'm there as a guide to help the company gracefully navigate, you know, however that transition is going to end up. Sometimes it is that director of people growing into the role, and sometimes it's not. And I feel like with my involvement, that transition has gone much more smoothly and much more positively for so many companies, because I just know how, you know, not positive that can be for lots of companies navigating that change.
Well, and it's shocking how many companies I've seen avoid, like, rather than deal with it, like risk it being like a compassionate process or not, they just don't do anything, and they just keep the wrong person in the wrong seat. And that is just like a recipe for disaster. Like, I've seen disastrous outcomes
Or
of
the
that.
opposite. My most like prized moments over the 3 years have been these turnaround moments where I get brought into a client because they want to fire the head of people, but really it's just a miscommunication and just a misunderstanding. And over a 3 to 4 month period, we've turned things around where the CEO and the head of people are stronger than ever, and the head of people is getting promoted. And I feel like I played a small part in in that turnaround.
That's got to be a great feeling. And so looking forward, like what do you think the next 3 years looks like for Shelby Wolpa Consulting?
Like I said, I want to just keep this going as long as I can. I'm having fun. I love the work with my clients and the community. I want to keep helping the next generation of people leaders. I want to keep building as many successful remote first companies as I can, and just take time to enjoy life.
And if I'm listening and I'm like, geez, like everything she's talking about, are issues and problems right now. Like what is the best way for people that want to work with you? And I know you're highly selective. Like, do I just DM you on LinkedIn? Like what's the best way to get to you?
Yeah, lots of ways. Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so please do send me a message. I have a website where you can use my contact form to inquire about working together. I have a free guide that anyone can download. I have a newsletter and a blog. So there's lots of ways to kind of get into my ecosystem. If maybe you don't have a budget to work with me, there's lots of free ways that I share my learnings. But I also have some micro consulting available through my Ask Me Anything sessions. So anyone, anytime can book one of those with me for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. I have the playbooks that we talked about earlier. So I've really tried, if it's not clear, I've really tried to like meet any company where they're at, either a solopreneur, someone just starting to think about consulting or just starting to think about product advising, micro consulting, all the way up to my full-blown clients.
All right, so now it is time for rapid fire questions. And
Ugh.
there's a unique little twist this time. So question 1, how do you define a solopreneur? What are the key traits and characteristics?
Okay, so I've never thought about this too deeply, but for me, a solopreneur is a one employee business. One employee. That doesn't mean that you can't outsource things like a designer, your accountant, your tax person. But you are the business, you are the brand.
All right, question 2. If you could share one piece of golden advice to those crazy enough to consider being a solopreneur, what advice would you give them?
My advice would be to not half-ass it, honestly. Like if you're going to do it, go all in for 6 to 12 months. I meet a lot of people that are just sort of biding their time with consulting while they search for their next job. And I get that. Like if you're in a bad situation, you want to leave your current employer and you want to have some income while searching for your next full-time gig. I totally get that. But I'd rather you frame that to the world that that's what you're doing rather than saying like you're all in on consulting, because it's just a different vibe. So my advice is go all in. And
Yes. I agree with that 100%. There was a moment after I got laid off by Humu. I remember I was in my backyard kind of pacing back and forth, and I was on the phone with Steven, and I was partly just talking to him as like my friend and my cousin, just like what should I do next? Should I go all in on the podcast? Should I try to find another job and have some income coming in while I'm also working on the podcast and trying to make this the full-time thing? And I was almost looking for permission to go all in on this because I already had talks about this with my wife. I was already sold on. I have the type of personality where I either have to like go all in on something or I'm just like not going to give it the energy, and I almost have to have no fallback option. Like for whatever reason, not having something to fall back on makes me go 1,000 times harder. So I agree with that advice. Like if you're gonna do it, then do it. Yeah, this has been like the most fun, I guess 9-10 months of my work life, and yeah, as I said at the beginning, I'm really grateful for it. All right. So sorry, this isn't about me. Last question on rapid fire questions. Is there anything that you believe to be true about the world of work, but don't yet have the data to support?
Hmm. Well, sadly, I'm going to kind of answer this question. I have the data to support that. I just wish that there were less tiers on my calls, honestly. Like what the tiers mean is that people leaders are struggling and they don't have the buy-in from their leadership team. They don't have, a CEO that gets it and kind of puts their money where their mouth is when it comes to investing in people and culture. So, I think the data does exist that, more engaged teams are more high performing teams, but we still have a ways to go for CEOs to, buy in to that methodology.
The most heartbreaking part of what we're talking about here is that the isolated position that a lot of people leaders are in, because they can't talk to their executive teams because that's part of the source of the frustration and the challenges and the betrayal of trust, or whatever it may be. And there's at least what we're hearing in our off the record conversations is there's a feeling that you can't really go to your team either because you will lose credibility. There's a fear that, right, whether it's real or not, that you will lose credibility, or it will be hard to keep the people engine running. With once people hear what's actually happening, they may start to waver, and as a result, you may not meet the goals that you're trying to meet. And that's the part that is like truly like if there's a takeaway from us, including our listeners, is like what can we do to like come together and address this problem, because it is a huge problem. And thank you for bringing it up, because since Daniel and I are having like off the record conversations, we don't really have the form to even like share what we're hearing. And so we're right there with you in terms of, being in support of addressing this. So we're now at the end. A couple more traditions, and we'll end the conversation. Staying in line with the the lens that we've been looking through. Who should we bring on to the show next? And specifically, are there any solopreneurs out there, just people that are thought leaders and are just like really innovating what we do, similar to yourself, that you think, man, this he or she needs to really be heard and have a platform to share what they're working on? Anyone like that in your network?
So many people, so many amazing thought leaders out there. One person that comes to mind is Farah Mitra. She's a fellow consultant and executive coach. She's huge on the concept of radical candor and goes around the world doing radical candor workshops for companies. So kind of on our theme of empowering people leaders and having open, transparent dialogue with executive teams, I think radical candor can be a great approach. So she's one, but there are so many others, and I'll send you their names.
Perfect. Love it. And here we are at the final tradition, which is one word or one phrase close. We all respond with a word or phrase that, as we reflect on the last hour, this amazing chat we've had, how we want to wrap things up.
Okay. Should I go first?
Please.
Oh, okay. All right. So the word that comes to mind for me is action. So calling back to kind of what I've been harping on today is so many people have good ideas. So many people have a dream of consulting, but they just need to act. So that's my advice. And I encourage people to start small. Like, you don't need a website. You don't need playbooks and all these things that I've talked about today. Keep in mind, I'm 3 years in to this journey. All you need is an email address and a template contract that you can download off the internet or off of ChatGPT. So
Or we'll share with you. We can share that with you also. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm gonna go with community. And you mentioned community earlier, that being kind of one of your themes, or like the practice that you're investing in this year. And that's just been the theme of the Modern People Leader. We've been talking so much about this, but today, the way that is coming up for me is just the fact that we have you, we put together this show very quickly, in that you're part of our community and all the amazing work that you're doing and the lives that you're touching. Like it's like our mission is being, is out there with others of, impacting, 100 million employee lives, by 2030. Like that's our mission. And we have our way of doing it, but the fact that we're part of this bigger community that, doesn't necessarily have the same mission, but, certainly is aligned with what we're trying to do. So thank you, Shelby, for being part of our community.
Oh, you're welcome.
And mine's gonna be a really long phrase. I'm gonna say on this journey together. I didn't even occur to me, but it's gonna be our 3-year anniversary in I guess like 2 or 3 months.
That's right.
So we're right behind you.
Okay, well, you got to celebrate. I'm all about going big.
Maybe we have an in-person party in Austin and like we have a joint party together to celebrate all of our birthdays. How about that?
I love
I'm
it.
down. And separately, Stephen, we need to have a tradition to celebrate wins at the Modern People Leader. So similar to how Shelby gets a cupcake with her, you said with your daughter, we need like some sort of tradition every time we close a deal. Maybe I don't know, get lunch or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we need to have some sort of tradition. Yeah.
I'm also in for cupcakes. Like I have a sweet tooth, so
supporting those local businesses, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm a huge fan of OMG Squeeze, so like maybe we get a donut instead. So
never
if
even
you have
heard of
them in
that.
there, look it up.
She was featured on Queer Eye. She's amazing.
That's how we found her, and we went and we were like, oh my God, this is the best. So
I love the black sesame soft serve.
Ooh, yeah. My daughter, Astrid, my oldest daughter, she has like the latest family innovation where you get it's like waffle cone and you get a filling in the waffle cone and then like a huge, scoop of ice cream. And so she's like, you got to get it in a cup and the waffle cone comes on top so that you don't just like have a huge mess on your hands. But anyhow, we love OMG Squee. Well, guys, what an amazing way to end the week. Congratulations, Shelby, on the anniversary. One last congrats. And I know we'll have you back soon. So I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
All right. Thank you both. This was awesome. Take care.
Take care.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And connect with us on LinkedIn. We wanna know what you think about the show. And you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. So thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.